Om Jnanadamrindasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Mena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasa Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we will start from where we left. So this is, we saw that first and second chapter was the answer by like Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj's inquiry of what is the ultimate thing that needs to be done, especially for a dying man and people in general. And after that, many um, things were mentioned about different demigods to be worshipped for different material purposes, and then finally worship of the Supreme Lord. So this was mentioned, and then after that, the Shaunakadi rishis, they were asking Suta Goswami what else was asked by Parikshit Maharaj and what else was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. So we want to hear more about this. And then they are giving reasons why they want to hear about Bhagavatam. So that is what we are going to see today. So now let's continue from where we left. It is the third chapter of second canto, 16th sloka onwards. Vaiyasakischa Bhagavan Vasudeva Parayana Urugaya Gunodaraha Satam Shurhi Samagame. Okay. Shukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva. Vaiyasaki means the son of Vyasadeva, that is Shukadeva Goswami, who also full in transcendental knowledge and was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, son of Vasudeva. Uh, so there must have been discussions of Lord Krishna, who is glorified by great philosophers and in the company of great devotees. So just before this shloka, we saw about how Parikshit Maharaj, even when he was a small child, he used to play with toys of Krishna. So, and that's the greatness of Parikshit Maharaj, and he is always attracted to Krishna. And then here, Sukadeva Goswami, so he is son of Vyasadeva, who is full of transcendental knowledge about Krishna. So, and he is also very, very addicted to Krishna. So two people who are having common interest, when they come together, obviously they will be talking something about that common interest, right? Sometimes businessmen, they come and then they come together and they discuss about business. And like different people, when they come together, so they generally start speaking about their common interest. And here both of their common interest is Lord Krishna, and definitely they may have spoken a lot about the Supreme Lord. So that's the question that they are, that's the reason they are putting it over there. Purport: the word Satam is very important. Satam means the pure devotees who have no other desire than to serve the Lord. Only in the association of such devotees are the transcendental glories of Lord Krishna properly discussed. So if people don't have this as the is their primary goal, that is they want to surrender to Krishna, if that is not their primary goal, so then the discussions is not going to happen in the right direction. So if they have, if that's why it is called as satsanga. Satsanga means like people of similar nature, people of people who are satam, people who are having no other desire other than to attend the Supreme Lord. So when they come together, then the glories of the Lord are properly discussed, right? So it is said by the Lord that his topics are all full of spiritual significance. And once one properly hears about him in the association of the Satam, certainly one senses, um, certainly one senses the great potency, and so automatically attains the devotional stage of life. Right. So this hearing has a very, very powerful effect if it is heard from a pure devotee of the Lord. Right. So it has a lot of effect on the heart. As already described, Maharaj Parikshit was a great devotee of Lord from his very birth, and so was Shukadev Goswami. Both of them were on the same level, although it appeared that Maharaj Parikshit was great king accustomed to royal facilities, whereas Shukadev Goswami was a typical renouncer of the world, so much so that he did not even put a cloth on his body. Superficially, Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadev Goswami might seem to be opposites, but basically they were both unalloyed pure devotees of the Lord. When such devotees are assembled together, there can be no topics save discussions of the glories of the Lord or Bhakti Yoga. So that means there is no other topics other than the Bhakti Yoga is discussed when such people meet together. In Bhagavad Gita also, when there were talks between the Lord and his devotee Arjuna, there could not be any topic other than Bhakti Yoga. However, the mundane scholars may speculate on it in their own ways. You know, like people say that Bhagavad Gita has, and we also say like Bhagavad Gita has Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and various yoga systems which are there. But then the ultimate conclusion of every chapter that comes in is Bhakti Yoga. Now, why? Because the who is involved in the discussion. So discussion is between the Supreme Lord and his dear devotee. So obviously there will be talks about Bhakti Yoga. So if people deduce that Karma Yoga is the ultimate goal of Bhagavad Gita or Jnana Yoga is the ultimate goal of Bhagavad Gita, that means they are not catching the right point. Because the people who are involved are like no fully into Bhakti. So then how can there be any topic that is discussed different from Bhakti Yoga? So the use of word cha after Vaya Sakihi suggests, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, that both Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit were of the same category, settled long before, although one was playing the part of the master and other the disciple. Since Lord Krishna is the center of the topics, the word Vasudeva Parayanaha or devotee of Vasudeva suggests devotees suggests devotee of Lord Krishna, the common name. Right? So both of them were devotees of Lord Krishna. Although there were many others who assembled at the place where Maharaj Parikshit was fasting, the natural conclusion is that there was no topic other than the glorification of Lord Krishna, because the principal speaker was Shukadev Goswami and the chief audience was Maharaj Parikshit. So Srimad Bhagavatam, as it was spoken and heard by two principal devotees of Lord, is only for the glorification of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. Text 17. Ayur harati vaipumsam udyanastam chayanasau tasharthe yat kshano nitha uttama shloka vartaya. Okay, so this is a very, very important sloka. It says, both by rising and by setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of all good personality of Godhead. So this is a very strong statement that is mentioned. Now, everyone is losing their life. Every time the sun rises and sets, we are losing one day in our life. We are getting closer to death. But then, like, it is mentioned that those who spend their time discussing the topics of the Lord, so they don't age like the common people age. So common people, they have only the goal of life as the their life in this particular body, and that is going to come to an end. But a person who is utilizing his time in discussing the topics of the Lord, he is getting closer to liberation. He is getting closer to the permanent life in the spiritual abode, right? Purport. This verse indirectly confirms the great importance of utilizing the human form of life to realize our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord by acceleration of devotional service. Time and tide wait for no man. So the time indicates the sunrise and the sunset. Time indicated by the sunrise and the sunset will be uselessly wasted if such time is not properly utilized for realizing identification of spiritual values. Even a fraction of duration of life wasted cannot be compensated by any amount of gold. Human life is simply awarded to a living entity, Jiva, so that he can realize the spiritual identity and his permanent source of happiness. A living being, especially the human being, is seeking happiness because happiness is the natural situation of living entity, but he is vainly seeking happiness in the material atmosphere. A living being is constitutionally a spiritual spark of the complete whole, and his happiness can be perfectly perceived in spiritual activities. The Lord is the complete spirit whole, and his name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, and personality are all identical with him. Right? So this we had quite often we had discussed this. The Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinnatvam Nama Namina. That means the Lord and his holy name are non-different. Hmm? So the Lord and his holy name, not only holy name, no, his name, his form, his qualities, pastimes, and his entourage, means his associates, and all of them are put together as Lord. So when people who are very, very neophyte in their practice of Krishna consciousness, they see that Lord means like the Murti who's there in the temple, that's all, me and my Lord, that's all. And then gradually, when they develop in their Krishna consciousness, they start identifying with the pastimes of the Lord, and they start respecting the devotees of the Lord, and they start regarding the devotees of the Lord, and all the various aspects which are there about the Lord is also equivalent to the Lord. So by serving the Lord's devotees, we serve the Lord. By serving the Lord's Dhamma, his holy abodes, we serve the Lord. By serving anything that is connected to the Lord is equivalent to service of the Lord. So that's what Lord Shiva says to Mother Parvati. He says that Aradhananam Sarvesham Vishnur Aradhanam Param Tasmat Parataram Devi Tadiyanam Samarchanam. So that means Aradhananam Sarvesham. So Aradhana means like to worship, and amongst the worship, Aradhananam Sarvesham, of all kinds of worship, what is the best form of worship? Vishnur Aradhanam Param. So to worship Vishnu is the ultimate. And then he says that no, Tasmat Parataram Devi, even more better than that, than worshipping the Supreme Lord Vishnu, is what? Tasmat Parataram Devi Tadiyanam Samarchanam. Tadiya means like that which is connected to the Supreme Lord. So devotees are connected to the Supreme Lord. The holy places where the Lord appears, that is connected to the Supreme Lord. Tulasi is connected to the Supreme Lord. Ganges is connected to the Supreme Lord. Anything that which is connected to the Supreme Lord. So if we worship that, so then it becomes even more better than worshipping the Lord directly. So why is it so? Prabhupada gives a simple example. When we go to a very big person, and he's a very big person, so I cannot give a befitting gift to appease him. But then if I can give a small gift to his son or a grandson or something like that, and then he becomes happy, so then the big man also becomes happy, right? So in that way, like anything that is connected to the Lord, if a person is taking care, then if a person is worshipping, so then he is considered to be that kind of a worship is considered to be better than worshipping the Supreme Lord directly. That is why we have in ISKCON, like every day we do Srila Prabhupada's Guru Puja. Sometimes when people come to the temple and they say that, no, why are you worshipping human? No, you should worship the Supreme. No, you should worship the God. So they don't understand the concept of Guru Puja. So we offer, Srila Prabhupada is great Acharya, and by his mercy we are able to get to know about this Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and all these things. So otherwise it is not possible for us to understand all these things, right? So when we get this knowledge, so then we offer Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada. So that's a very important aspect of this one, the important etiquette that we follow. So in this way, the Lord means, the Lord is the complete spirit whole, and his name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, and personality are all identical with him. So it's not Lord means Lord separately, and then no, other people are different. No, it's not like that. So once a person comes into contact with any one of the above mentioned energies of the Lord through the proper channel of devotion, sorry, through the proper channel of devotional service, the door to perfection is immediately opened. In the Bhagavad Gita 240, the Lord has explained such contact in the following words. Endeavors in devotional service are never baffled, nor is the failure. A slight beginning of such activities is sufficient even to deliver a person from the great ocean of material fears. As a highly potent drug injected intravenously acts at once on the whole body, the transcendental topics of the Lord injected through the ear by a pure devotee of the Lord can act very efficiently. This is like the it's like Bhava Aushadhi, Nivrittarshay Rupagi Yamana, Bhava Aushadhi, Shota Bano Viramad. So this is Bhava Aushadhi, or this is the Aushadhi means medicine, and Bhava Roga means like the material disease. And Bhava Aushadhi means this Krishna conscious topics, what we are hearing, they are the medicine to cure the material disease. And if it is injected into the ear of a person by a pure devotee of the Lord, so then it becomes very, very powerful intravenous injection kind of a thing. No, it actually cures the material disease very quickly. And oral realizations of the transcendental message implies total realization, just as fructification of one part of a tree implies fructification of all other parts. So there are many places it is mentioned that when we see the Lord through our ears, that is when we hear about the Lord's pastimes or Lord's subject matter, like Srimad Bhagavatam. So when we hear about them, it is considered to be a direct association of the Lord. It is not some indirect association of the Lord. The Lord is somewhere and I'm hearing about him. No, this is direct perception of the Lord. So direct perception of the Lord through sound vibration, right? So sometimes Prabhupada asks this question, why are we giving so much of importance for seeing only? Like the five senses, knowledge acquiring senses, they are all different senses, and we can gain perception through all of them. And when the Lord is present in the form of sound vibration, so why we have to give so much of stress on seeing only? If we can carefully hear the Hare Krishna mantra properly, and if we carefully hear Srimad Bhagavatam, so then we can get the direct experience of the Lord. So we should have faith in this aspect that Bhagavatam is the sound representation of the Lord, Hare Krishna mantra is the sound representation of the Lord. When we chant them and when we hear them with absorption, we are directly getting in touch with the Lord. That confidence and that faith we should have, right? So this realization for a moment is the association, for a moment in the association of pure devotees like Shukadev Goswami prepares one's complete life for eternity. And thus the sun fails to rob the pure devotee of his duration of life, inasmuch as he is constantly busy in the devotional service of the Lord, purifying his existence. Right? So when we are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord, so that much the time cannot snatch away our duration of life, right? So death is a symptom of the material infection, and the eternal living being, the death is a symptom of the material infection of the eternal living being. Only due to material infection is the eternal living entity subjected to the laws of birth, death, old age, and disease, right? So we are eternal. We are not supposed to be challenged by the birth, death, old age, and disease. But then we are put into this condition. So here we see that we are not supposed to be challenged by these things, but we are put into this. It's only because of material infection. And more we hear about the Lord, more we are getting cleared of this material infection. The materialistic way of pious activities like charity is recommended in the Smriti Shastras as quoted by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Money given in charity to a suitable person is guaranteed bank balance in the next life. Such charity is recommended to be given to a Brahmana. If the money is given in charity to a non-Brahmana without Brahminical qualification, the money is returned in the next life in the same proportion. If it is given in charity to a half-educated Brahmana, then even then the money is returned double. If the money is given in charity to a learned and fully qualified Brahmana, the money is returned 100 and thousands of times. And if the money is given to a Veda Paraga, So one who has factually realized the path of Vedas, it is returned by unlimited multiplication. The ultimate end of Vedic knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead Lord Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Vedescha Sarver Aham Eva Vedyaha. There is a guarantee of monies being returned if given in charity, regardless of the proportion. Similarly, a moment passed in association of a pure devotee by hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Lord is a perfect guarantee for eternal life, for returning home back to Godhead. Maddhama gatva punarjanma na vidyate. In other words, a devotee of Lord is guaranteed eternal life. A devotee's old age or disease in the present life is but an impetus to such guaranteed eternal life. So a devotee is just, no, he is not no facing death like anyone else. No, for him it is a very happy ending. No, for him it is going to be the this one, no, reunion with the Lord. So he is very very eager, no, for that moment. Text 18. Taravakim na jivanti bastra kim na swasantyuta na khadanti na mehanti kim grame pasavo pare. Do the trees not live? Do the bellows of the blacksmith not breathe? All around us, do the beast not eat and discharge semen? Okay. Purport: the materialistic men of the modern age will argue that life or a part of it is never meant for discussion of the theosophical or theological arguments. That means, like, no, why are you wasting time on this theological stuffs? No, just enjoy life, right? So that's what the materialistic man will say. So life is meant for maximum duration of existence, for eating, drinking, sexual intercourse, making merry, and enjoying life. The modern man wants to live forever by advancement of material science. And there are many foolish theories for prolonging life to the maximum duration. But the Srimad Bhagavatam affirms that life is not meant for so-called economic development or advancement of materialistic science, for the hedonistic philosophy of eating, mating, drinking, and merrymaking. Life is solely meant for tapasya, for purifying existence, so that one may enter into eternal life just after the end of human form of life. The materialists want to prolong life as much as possible because they have no information of the next life. They want to get the maximum comforts in this present life because they think conclusively that there is no life after death. This ignorance about the eternity of living being and the change of covering in the material world has played havoc in the structure of modern human society. Consequently, there are many problems multiplied by various plans of modernized man. The plans for solving the problem of society have only aggravated the troubles. So, in the name of solving the problems, like, people have only aggravated the troubles. People have only increased the troubles. No, that is there. Right? So, even if it is possible to prolong life more than 100 years, advancement of human civilization does not necessarily follow. So the Bhagavatam says that certain trees live for hundreds and thousands of years. At Vrindavan, there is a tamarind tree, a place known as Imalitala, which is said to have existed since the time of Lord Krishna. In Calcutta Botanical Garden, there is a banyan tree said to be older than 5,000 years. And there are many such trees all over the world. Swami Shankaracharya lived only 32 years and Lord Chaitanya lived 48 years. Does it mean that the prolonged life of the above mentioned trees are more important than Shankara and Chaitanya? Prolonged life without spiritual value is not very important. One may doubt that trees have life because they do not breathe. One may doubt that the trees have life because they do not breathe. So, okay, so even if we discount trees as, okay, they are non-living entities, though they are living entities, no, but then if somebody say, okay, they don't breathe, no, that's why they can be discounted. But modern scientists like Bose have already proved that there is life in plants. So breathing is no sign of actual life. The Bhagavatam says that the bellows of the blacksmith breathes very soundly, but that does not mean that the bellows has life, right? So bellows means like the blacksmith, for melting the gold, he uses a kind of, it's called as bellow. He actually pumps it, and when he pumps it, the strong, forceful air actually comes out of the bellow. So that's compared to breathing. No, it is like, inhaling and exhaling. So in the same way, like, the bellows of the blacksmith, they are also breathing. So what's so important about, just having a life and breathing? That's not very important, right? So more important is to have Krishna consciousness in such a life, right? So the materialist will argue that life in the tree and life in the man cannot be compared, because the tree cannot enjoy life by eating palatable dishes or by enjoying sexual intercourse. In reply to this, Bhagavatam asks whether the ordinary animals like dogs and hogs living in the same village with human beings do not eat and enjoy sexual life. The specific utterance the specific utterance of Srimad Bhagavatam in regard to other animals means that persons who are simply engaged in planning a better type of animal life consisting of eating, breathing, and mating are also animals in the shape of human beings. A society of such polished animals cannot benefit suffering humanity, for an animal can easily harm another animal but rarely do good. Right? So this is what is happening now. No, rarely, no, people are doing good to other people, by the way of pollution and by the way of so many other things. So like we are only creating sufferings for other people and ourselves, and that's the position of the human society. So here the Bhagavatam is asking, no, what's so great about living for long years? What's so great about breathing? And what's so great about eating and mating? No, there is nothing great about these things if we don't engage in the Krishna service, if we don't hear about the topics of the Lord. So now these things are spoken by Shaunakadi rishis, and they are requesting Sutta Goswami. You see, like, we have got this human form of life, and what's the use of this human form of life if we don't hear about the Supreme Lord? And no, you have heard all that Shukadev Goswami has spoken to Parikshit Maharaj. Please tell us all of it. No, our life is not going to be useful if it is not for this hearing of the Supreme Lord. Right? So that's what these Shaunakadi rishis are requesting the Sutta Goswami to speak more. That's why they are citing all these things. Then Swavid Varahoshtra Karaihi Samuttaha Purushaha Pashuhu Nayat Karana Pato Petho Jatu Nama Gadagrajaha. Okay, so here men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, the deliverer from evils. So Bhagavatam is getting a little more intense now. So they are really, criticizing the general mass of people, right? So the general mass of people, unless they are trained systematically for a higher standard of life and spiritual values, are no better than animals. And in this verse, they have particularly been put on the level of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. Modern university education practically prepares one to acquire a doggish mentality with which to accept a service of a greater master. It is Prabhupada often, he says, okay, no, yeah, that's what he's going to say here, I think. After finishing a so-called education, the so-called educated person moves like dog from door to door with application for some service, and mostly they are driven away, informed of no vacancy. As dogs are negligible animals and serve the master faithfully for bits of bread, a man serves a master faithfully without sufficient rewards. Persons who have no discrimination in the matter of foodstuffs and who eat all sorts of rubbish are compared to hogs. Hogs means pigs, actually. So hogs are very much attached to eating stool, the gutter stuff. So stool is a kind of foodstuff for a particular type of animal, and even stones are eatables for a particular type of animal and birds. But the human being is not meant for eating everything and anything. He is meant to eat grains, vegetables, fruits, milk, sugar, etc. Animal food is not meant for human being. For chewing solid food, the human being has a particular type of teeth meant for cutting fruits and vegetables. And the human being is endowed with two canine teeth as a concession for persons who will eat animal food at any cost. It is known to everyone that one man's food is another man's poison. Human beings are expected to accept the remnants of food offered to Lord Sri Krishna, and the Lord accepts foodstuffs from the categories of leaves, flowers, fruits, etc. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakta payachati. That. As prescribed by Vedic scriptures, no animal food is offered to the Lord. Therefore, a human being is meant to eat a particular type of food. He should not imitate the animals to derive so called vitamin values. Therefore, a person who has no discrimination in regard to eating is compared to a hog. Right? So, the camel is a kind of animal that takes pleasure in eating thorns. Hmm. A person who wants to enjoy family life or the worldly life of so called enjoyment is compared to the camel. Materialistic life is full of thorns, and so one should live only by prescribed method of Vedic regulation, just to make the best use of a bad bargain. So here it is mentioned about the camel eating the thorn. No, camel eats the thorn, and then the thorn cuts the camel's tongue. And oh, okay, so that is there. No proper this mm, explaining it later on in the purport. Anyways, so materialistic life is full of thorns, and so one should live only by prescribed method of Vedic regulation, just to make the best use of a bad bargain. So bad bargain is that we have somehow or other committed some sinful activities. That's why we have taken.
Prabhuji, we are not able to hear you.
Okay, so till where I was speaking, like when I stopped.
Prabhuji, you are explaining about the camel is a kind of animal.
Okay, okay. So camel eating thorns. Okay, so here it's mentioned, anyways, in the purport it is described. The materialistic life is full of thorns, and one should live only by prescribed method of Vedic regulation, just to make the best use of a bad bargain. Life in material world is maintained by sucking one's own blood. The central point of attraction for material enjoyment is sex life. To enjoy sex life is to suck one's own blood, and there is not much more to be explained in this connection. The camel also sucks its own blood while chewing the thorny twigs. The thorns um, the camel eats cut the tongue of the camel, and so blood begins to flow within the camel's mouth. The thorn mixed with the fresh blood creates a taste for the foolish camel, and so he enjoys the thorn eating business with false pleasure. Similarly, the great business magnates, industrialists who work very hard to earn money by different ways and questionable means eat the thorny results of their actions mixed with their own blood. Therefore, the Bhagavatam has uh, situated these deceased fellows uh, along with the camels. So they are categorized on the class of camels. The ass is an animal who is celebrated as the greatest fool even amongst the animals. The ass works very hard and carries burdens of the maximum weight without making profit for itself. The ass is generally engaged by the washerman whose social position is not very respectable. And the special qualification of the ass is that it is very much accustomed to being kicked by the opposite sex. When the ass begs for sexual intercourse, he is kicked by the fair sex, yet he still follows the female for such sexual pleasure. A henpecked man is compared, therefore, to the ass. The general mass of people work very hard, especially in the age of Kali. In this age, the human being is actually engaged in the work of an ass, carrying heavy burdens and driving tela and rickshaws. The so-called advancement of human civilization has engaged a human being in the work of an ass. The laborers in the factories, in the great factories and workshops, are also engaged in such burdensome work. And after working hard during the day, the poor laborer begin has to be again kicked by the fair sex, not only for sex enjoyment but also for so many household affairs. So Srimad Bhagavatam, so Srimad Bhagavatam's categorization of common man without any spiritual enlightenment into the society of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses is not at all an exaggeration. The leaders of such ignorant masses of people may feel very proud of being adored by such a number of dogs and hogs, but that is not very flattering. The Bhagavatam openly declares that although a person may be a great leader of such dogs and hogs disguised as men, if he has no taste for being enlightened in the science of Krishna, such a leader is also an animal and nothing more. He may be designated as a powerful, strong animal or a big animal, but in the estimation of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is never given a place in the category of man on account of his atheistic temperament. Or, in other words, such godless leaders of dog and hog like men are bigger animals with qualities of animals in greater proportion. Okay. So, no, Bhagavatam is really very heavy on such people where they don't have interest in understanding the topics of the Supreme Lord. Right. So, there is this statement is also there from the Mahabharata, I suppose, where it says that ahara nidra bhaya maitunam cha samanam etad Pashubir Naranam, Dharmo Hitesham Adiko Vishesho Dharme Nahina Pashubir Samana. So that means these four activities, eating, sleeping, having sex, and defense, all these four activities are common for men and animals. But the speciality of human beings is no dharmo hitesham adiko vishesho. If we follow the religious principles, especially the religious principle for this age is chanting the names of the Lord and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So if we don't do this thing, so then if we minus this dharma from the human beings, what is left out is just the animal portion of it. So a human being is categorized under the class of animals if they are not endeavoring to hear about the Supreme Lord. Right? So bile batoru krama vikramanye nashinvata karna pute nareshya narasya jiva sati daru dadurikesh dadurikeva sutha nachopagayatya urugaya gataha. Okay, one who has not listened to the message about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of snake and a tongue like the tongue of a frog. Right. So if somebody is not hearing the glories of the Lord, so then he must be hearing something else. So then his ear holes are considered to be like the holes of snake, right? And then where the snakes live. And then the tongue is compared to the tongue of a frog. So why this comparison? That also we will see in the purport. Devotional service to the Lord is rendered by all limbs or parts of the body in the transcendental dynamic force of the spirit soul. Therefore, a devotee is engaged 100% in the service of the Lord. So one can engage in devotional service when the senses of the body are purified in relation with the Lord, and one can render service to the Lord with help of all the senses. Right? So this is a very, very important philosophical point. So which says that this one sarva upadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesa sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So when a person is when we are engaged in service of the Lord, so we don't have the highest levels of realization, but then so we are still engaged in the service of the Lord. So what happens is we are getting purified of our contamination, and when all the purification is completely done, sarva upadi vinirmuktam, all the upadi or all the dirty things whichever is there, if it is all vinirmuktam, if it is all completely cleansed off, sarva upadi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam, then we become situated in nirmala. Means mala means contamination, nirmala means like there is no contamination, tat paratvena nirmalam. And then what happens is, in that purified state of existence, when we render service to the Lord, that is actually called as bhakti. Right now what we are doing is like not much of bhakti is happening. We are using bhakti to purify our senses, and over a period of time when our senses become purified, so when we render service to the Lord with the purified senses, that is called really bhakti. Right? So now we see that so this it is like we can take this example. Sometime back also I had given this example. of when a small child is trying to walk. So no practical tangible work is done, right? So the child is trying to get up and walk and things like that. So but then if the child is able to balance itself, that itself is a great thing. There is no work that we can expect to be accomplished by the child, but then still that attempt is very pleasing to the parents, right? So in the same way, like when we are trying to render service to the Lord, we are trying to chant, we are trying to hear about the Lord. So no tangible service is getting done, but then we are trying to purify our consciousness, right? So when we completely get purified, and then when we offer service to the Lord, that is like a grown-up child. You can say, no, you get this thing for me, you get that thing for me, you go to a shop and purchase something for me, and things like that. So the child can do some tangible work, right? So that is the purified state. In the contaminated state, only thing that is accomplished is, in the when the child is very small, like only thing that is accomplished is, the child is able to gain some strength in the legs, and then trying to practice to walk, that's all. So that's what is going to happen, right? So one can engage in devotional service when the senses of the body are purified in relation with the Lord, and one can render service to the Lord with the help of all the senses. So all the senses what we have should be used in the service of the Lord, right? So gradually, when we use different senses in the service of the Lord, the senses become purified, and with the purified senses, further service what we do is actually the real service that is done to the Lord. Okay. As such, the senses and the action of the senses are to be considered impure or materialistic as long as they are employed only in sense gratification. The purified senses are engaged not in sense gratification, but in the service of the Lord in toto. That means in complete, right? So in the contaminated stage, sometimes we engage in service of the Lord, sometimes we engage in some other activities of sense gratification. And then gradually, like our taste for engaging in the service of the Lord increases in proportion to the purification of the senses. And when the senses become completely purified, so then we become completely engaged in the service of the Lord, right? So the Lord is the supreme with the Lord is the supreme with all senses, and the servitor who is part and parcel of the Lord also has the same senses. The service of the Lord is completely purified use of the senses, as described in Bhagavad Gita. So, like when we use our senses in the service of the Lord, that is the purified usage of the senses, right? So when we use it for any other purpose, then it is not, then it is contaminated, right? So in the same way, like as we are, if we are employed in a particular organization, so if we use our senses in the service of the company, then it is pure. But then I go to the company and use the resources of the company and use it for my personal, some other personal activities. So then it is contaminated, right? So in the same way, all the senses are property of the Lord. Rishikesha, Rishika, Isha, that means he is the master of the senses, and the senses must be engaged in the service. And that is what is the perfect usage of the senses, and that's the purified usage of the senses, right? The Lord imparted instructions with full senses, and Arjuna received them with full senses. And thus there was a perfect exchange of sensible and logical understanding between the master and the disciple. Spiritual understanding is nothing like an electrical discharge from the master to the disciple, as uh, as foolishly claimed by some propaganda mongers. Everything is full of sense and logic, and the exchange of views between the master and disciple is possible only when the reception is submissive and real, right? So it is not that if we have to get a spiritual master and he will just touch me and then I'll get some electric shock and I'll get all the siddhis in one shot, right? So that is not something, like that is not the way the spiritual topics are like done. Spiritual topics are primarily like the spiritual advancement primarily happens when the spiritual master speaks and the disciple hears, and in that way the transformation happens in the heart. So that's the primary way of spiritual advancement. Okay, so everything is full of sense and logic, and the exchange of views between the master and disciple is possible only when the reception is submissive and real. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that one should receive the teaching of Lord Chaitanya with intellect and full senses so that one can logically understand the great mission, right? So we should use all our senses to understand the message of the Supreme Lord presented in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the impure state of a living being, the various senses are fully engaged in mundane affairs. If the ear is not engaged in the service of the Lord by hearing about Him from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, certainly the holes of the ear will be filled with some rubbish. Therefore, the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam should be preached all over the world very loudly. That is the duty of a pure devotee who has actually heard about them from the perfect sources. Many want to speak something to others, but because they are not trained to speak on the subject matter of Vedic wisdom, they are all speaking nonsense and people are receiving them with no sense. There are hundreds and thousands of sources for disturbing mundane news of the world, and people of the world are also receiving it. Similarly, the people of the world should be taught to hear the transcendental topics of the Lord, and the devotee of the Lord must speak loudly so that they can hear. The frogs loudly croak, with the result that they invite the snakes to eat them. So wherever the frogs are there, we have a practical experience. So, the in our parent temple in HBR layout, we have now we have more buildings, but then before we had a lot of empty land. So, in the rainy season, a lot of frogs would come, and they would multiply. Sometimes, the whole surface area will be completely filled with small frogs. And then we used to have a lot of snakes also, because abutting to our place was many acres of empty land was there, and the snakes would come and just for eating the frogs, right? So whenever the frogs start croaking, they invite the snakes, right? So that's the this one. The human tongue is especially given for chanting the Vedic hymns and not for croaking like frogs. The word asati used in this verse is also significant. Asati means a woman who has become a prostitute. A prostitute has no reputation for good womanly qualities. Similarly, the tongue, which is given to the human being for chanting the Vedic hymns, will be considered a prostitute when engaged in chanting some mundane nonsense. Oh, it's a very, very heavy stanza. So that's how the Bhagavatam puts it, right? So let's see the next sloka. Brahaparam patta kirita justam apyuttamangam namen mukundam sa shavau karau na kurute saparyam harer lasat kanchana kankanova. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, if only a heavy bird is only a heavy burden, if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom, right? So here it's mentioned is Baraha param. Bara means like very heavy. Param bara like means the very, very heavy. Patta kirita justam. No, kirita means like the this one helmet, or the kirita, like the kings wear, right? So nice turbans on their head, turbans or the helmet, whatever we call. So that is just a burden on the head if the head is not willing to bow down in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the awarder of mukti, mukunda. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead Hari, right? So purport, as stated herein before, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotee does not at all see anyone who's not in the service of the Lord, but the second class devotee makes distinction between the devotees and non-devotees, right? So here we see that the first class devotee does not at all see anyone who's not in the service of the Lord. So that means it is like, he sees that everyone is some way or other, everyone is better than me, everyone is a better devotee than me, I am only like non-devotee, like that. So that's the mood of a first class devotee. First class devotee never considers himself to be devotee. He considers everyone else to be very, very nice, and he is the only bad person. He thinks like that. Okay. So, but the second class devotee makes distinction between devotees and non-devotees. The second class devotees are therefore meant for preaching work, and as referred to in the above verse, they must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. The second class devotee accepts disciples from the section of third class devotees or non-devotees. Sometimes the first class devotee also comes down to the category of second class devotee for preaching work. But the common man who is expected to become at least a third class devotee is advised herein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity, even though he may be a very rich man or even a king with a silk turban or crown. The Lord is the Lord of everyone, including the great kings and emperors. And men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple of Lord Sri Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity, before the Archa Vigraha. The Lord in the temple is the worshipable form. Uh, the Lord in the temple in the worshipable form is never to be considered to be made of stone or wood. The Lord in his Archa incarnation, like Archa avatar, it is called Archa incarnation, as the deity in the temple, shows immense favor to the fallen souls by his auspicious presence. By the hearing process, as mentioned herein before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. As such, the first process is the routine work of devotional service, that is hearing, is the essential point. So very, very important devotional service that all of us must do is to hear about the Lord, right? So that's a very important service need to be done. And hearing by all classes of devotees from the authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. The common man who's puffed up with his material position and does not bow down before the deity of the Lord in the temple, or who defies temple worship without any knowledge of the signs, must know that his so-called turban or crown will only succeed in further drowning him into the water of ocean of material existence. So this world is called Bhavasagar, or ocean of material existence, and a very nicely decorated crown or a turban is only a heavy burden on his head, and it is going to sink him into the ocean, and it is not going to help him if he is not offering his pranams to the Supreme Lord, obeisances to the Supreme Lord. A drowning man with a heavy weight on his head is sure to go down more swiftly than those who have no heavy weight, right? So that means in the material estimation, being kings and being very powerful people and things like that, and not accepting the supremacy of the Lord, so they are only going to be pushed down, deep into the material world, and no auspiciousness is going to be there. And for that, common man is much better than a very important person in the material world. So because he has a heavy burden, and he can be swiftly drowned into the deepest altitudes into the ocean of material existence. A foolish puffed up man defies the signs of God and says that God has no meaning for him. But when he is in the grip of God's law and is caught by some disease like cerebral uh, thrombosis, that godless man sinks into the ocean of missions by the weight of his material acquisition. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society, and so one must take heed to this great warning. The common man, if he has no time to worship Lord, may at least engage his hands for a few seconds in washing or sweeping the Lord's temple. Maharaj Prataparudra, the greatly powerful king of Orissa, was always very busy with heavy state responsibilities, yet he made it a point to sweep the temple of Lord Jagannath at Puri once a year during the festival of the Lord. During the Rath Yatra, even now the chief minister or the main person, they go and do this ceremony, they sweep in front of the Lord, Lord's Ratha. So the idea is that however important a man one may be, he must accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. This God consciousness will help a man even in the material prosperity. Maharaj Prataparudra's subordination before Lord Jagannath made him a powerful king, so much so that even the great Patan in his time could not enter into Orissa on account of the powerful Maharaj Prataparudra. So in the rest of the places it was Muslim rule was going on, but then the Orissa was unconquerable because of this very great king, no, Maharaj Prataprudra, and he was there during the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? And at the time, and at last Maharaj Prataprudra was graced by Lord Sri Chaitanya on the very grounds of his acceptance of subordination to the Lord of the universe. So even though a rich man's wife has glittering bangles made of gold on her hands, she must engage herself in rendering service to the Lord, right? So everyone must engage in service of the Lord. That's the conclusion. Okay, so this is going to take a lot of time. So we will then stop here. So today is an Ekadashi, and so it is very, very auspicious day, and it is very good to chant more number of rounds and hear and read more and things like that. So in the morning, all of us chanted 64 rounds of Hare Krishna mantra, and all of you also can try to chant more as many rounds as possible, right? So that will be very, very nice actually. So those who are not chanting 16 rounds, they can try to chant 16 rounds today, and others also who are chanting 16 rounds, they can chant a little extra. That is very nice. And when we are chanting, the prime thing that we are hearing again and again in Srimad Bhagavatam is the quality of hearing, and this hearing in itself can take us to the highest levels of realizations and highest levels of Krishna consciousness. So, when we are chanting the names of the Lord, the most important process is hearing. And if we can hear the names properly, so then we will get so much of taste in here, in the chanting process, that we will like to increase the number of rounds, right? So generally, in ashram, like we have devotees chanting no more than 25, 30 rounds every day, like that. So it is not that somebody is behind them, like, no, you should chant, okay? So but then they feel that happiness, they feel that so it is so nice actually to chant and hear the names of the Lord, and it can actually immerse us in greatest levels of bliss. So we should just simply take on to this process, very, very simple process of chanting the names of the Lord and just hearing them. And whatever other thoughts come to the mind, just try to say that, okay, let all these things can be kept by the side. The whole world is not going to stop if I'm not going to think about this, right? So let me just stop all these things and let me just fully focus on the sound vibration and nothing else, right? So when we try to do that like that, even few rounds, even if not few rounds, even few mantras also, if we can absorbedly chant, that has so much of effect, very, very great effect actually. So kindly try to absorb yourself in chanting the names of the Lord. Especially today is Ekadashi, we get so much more benefit by performing the devotional service on this auspicious day, right? So thank you very much for joining and hearing the Krishna Katha. Hare Krishna. Krishna. So Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.